Ever feel like you're drowning in options, big or small? Like what to have for dinner or which career path to take.
Oh, absolutely. Those everyday choices can feel just as weighty as the big life decisions.
Mhm.
It's that constant mental gymnastics, right?
Exactly. And today we're diving into some practical advice on how to make those decisions, not just with confidence, but with a sense of, okay, I've got this.
I like that. Taking control, feeling empowered in our decision making. That's
Mm.
key.
Yes. We're pulling our insights from Pasted Text, which offers 5 self-improvement tips for making better decisions. What I found interesting is that it all starts with something that seems obvious but often gets overlooked.
And that is,
Gathering information. It seems simple, but think about a time you made a decision you regretted. Was there information you wish you'd had at the time?
oh, all the time. We've all been there, right? Maybe impulse, bought something, or agreed to something without thinking it through. That's where that lack of information really bites us later.
It's like choosing a restaurant, right? You could just go with the one that has the funniest name or the coolest Instagram pictures.
But wouldn't you have a better experience if you checked out some reviews, looked at the menu, maybe even asked friends for recommendations?
Exactly. It's like that for so many decisions. So it's about arming yourself not just with facts, but with perspectives. Understanding the potential downsides, not just the shiny surface.
And sometimes even just realizing what you don't know can be the most valuable information of all. It helps you know where to look further or when to ask for help.
It's like choosing a travel destination, right? Scrolling through those picture-perfect Instagram posts is one thing, but actually talking to someone who's been there or researching local customs, that totally changes your perspective.
Absolutely. It's the difference between making an informed choice and just taking a shot in the dark.
So, okay, say we've done our research, we've gathered the information, now what? We're still left with this mountain of facts, opinions, pros, cons. How do we actually make sense of it all?
Well, that's where that classic piece of advice comes in the pros and cons list.
Yeah, the good old list. I must admit, sometimes it feels a little too simple. Like, am I really going to make a life-changing decision based on a list I scribbled on a napkin?
Right, I get that. But there's a reason it's a classic. It forces you to consciously consider both sides of the coin. But here's the thing. It's not enough to just list them out. We also need to think about their weight, their significance.
You mean like one pro shouldn't outweigh like 5 cons just because there are more of them?
Exactly. Think of it like a courtroom, right? You've got evidence on both sides, but some pieces of evidence are just way more compelling than others.
And that's where maybe that feeling in your gut comes in, right? Like sometimes after you've made your list, you just have this sense of what the right choice is, even if it's not the one with the most check marks in the pro column.
Absolutely. That's where tip number 3 comes in, trusting your intuition.
It's like after all that logical thinking, you're suddenly supposed to just feel your way through it.
Well, think of it this way. Our intuition isn't random. It's informed by years of experience. All those past decisions, patterns we've observed, things we've learned, it's all stored away in our subconscious.
So it's not about ignoring logic, but about acknowledging that our gut feeling might be picking up on something that our conscious mind missed.
Exactly. It's about finding that sweet spot between logic and intuition.
It's almost like our subconscious is whispering, hey, remember that time? And suddenly a decision that seemed impossible becomes crystal clear.
Exactly. It's about tapping into that inner wisdom.
So we've gathered information, we've weighed the pros and cons, we've listened to our intuition. Is there anything else?
Well, there's one more crucial aspect we need to consider, the long-term consequences of our choices.
Oh, that's a big one. I'm speaking from experience here. I'm the queen of impulse purchases. Sometimes I forget to ask myself, will I still be happy with this a month from now?
Right, that instant gratification can be so tempting.
Mm.
But it's so important to remember that our decisions rarely exist in a vacuum. They have ripple effects, impacting not just our present selves, but our future selves too.
So asking ourselves, what will the impact of this decision be down the line is super important. Will I regret this later? Will this choice limit my options in the future?
Exactly. It's about thinking beyond that instant gratification.
Which is tough. But you know what I've found? Sometimes having too many options can make it harder to make a decision.
Oh, absolutely. That's where our final tip comes in, limiting your options.
It's like that saying, paralyzed by choice. The more options we have, the more overwhelmed we feel.
Exactly. It's like trying to choose what to watch on a streaming platform. Thousands of movies, but you end up just scrolling for an hour and watching nothing.
Oh, tell me about it. So how do we actually limit those options without feeling like we're missing out?
One practical tip is to set a timer, say for 5 minutes. Then Quickly go through your options and eliminate anything that clearly doesn't fit your criteria.
That way you're not getting bogged down in analyzing every single possibility.
Exactly. A smaller, more manageable set of options can make the decision so much easier.
So looking back at all 5 tips gathering information, weighing the pros and cons, trusting our intuition, considering long-term consequences, and limiting our options, it seems like they all work together, right?
Precisely. These tips aren't isolated, they're interconnected. The information you gather informs your intuition. Your long-term vision influences your pros and cons. It's all part of a bigger decision-making ecosystem.
It's like each tip empowers the next. And ultimately, it's about making choices from a place of awareness rather than feeling swept away by indecision.
Exactly. So as a final thought-provoking question for our listeners, think of a decision you're facing right now, big or small. How could applying even just one of these tips lead to a different, perhaps even better outcome?
That's something to chew on. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
You got it. Always a pleasure.